Karma got the best of my wife's ex-lover. Cassie and I have been married for 5 years and dated for about 5 years before we got married. You could say we were childhood sweethearts. I had several girlfriends before marrying Cassie, but she had only been with one guy as far as I know. Everything was going according to plan in our marriage. We both worked and saved enough money to start looking for our first home. Children were to come later. My career as a design engineer was well underway, and Cassie was planning to be a stay-at-home mom as soon as the first child came along. Cassie was as beautiful as the day I started dating her. She had shoulder-length brown hair with long, thick bangs that went down to her eyes. Her eyes were dark, and they sparkled when she laughed. She had well-defined hips and a nice waist. I myself was a bit average, to say the least. My height was under 6 feet and my weight was under 200 pounds. The best part about me was that I still had hair. I jogged at least 3 times a week, so I was in pretty good shape. Sex was fine. We had tried just about everything over the years and openly discussed what each of us liked and didn't like. I was fine with her sex life, and I assumed she was fine with mine. Life was good. The future was bright. It was bright until we had our nightly conversation. Usually when we go to bed, we do one of 2 things: have sex or fall asleep. We never lay in bed with the lights off and discussed personal matters. It was a routine that seemed to suit us both. Now I realize why it was a good policy. "John, can we talk about something?" "What, now?" "Can't it wait until tomorrow?" She was silent for a moment. "John, Clayton Brenner is in town for a few days. Would you mind if I saw him while he's here?" She had my attention. Clayton Brenner was the only guy Cassie had sex with besides me. He'd been a real macho guy when we were in high school. His family had money, and Clayton always dressed smart and drove a fancy car while the other guys tried to maintain their piles of junk. All the girls reached out to him, and he picked them to his liking. He would date one for a few weeks and then dump her and pick up another. The girls knew what he was doing, but still thought it was them. Unfortunately, Cassie was one of the ones he used and dumped. He bragged about his conquests to other guys, which was very low in my opinion. He was also supposed to be pretty good in bed, and as far as I know, none of the girls ever complained about his performance, including Cassie. "Why are you asking me this now?" "I just don't want to do anything you don't want me to do." "Where?" "At the Deska Inn restaurant." "Cassie, Clayton Brenner is not among my favorite people." "I know, but we were friends back in high school." "Cassie, you weren't his friend. You were a notch on his belt." She didn't answer anything, and the pause was maddening. "When did he call you?" "Yesterday." "Why are you telling me this now?" There was another silence, longer than the first. "I'm not going to comment one way or the other. Do as you please. Let your conscience be your guide." I'd always wanted to say that. I rolled over onto my side, turning away from her. It was quiet for a while, and then I heard her crying softly into her pillow. It was something she had never done before. I lay perfectly still so she wouldn't guess that I was still awake. She whimpered to herself for a long time and then finally fell asleep. It was the longest night of my life. Why was she crying? Because I refused to approve of her meeting her ex-boyfriend. Why had she waited all day to tell me about him coming to town? Why did he even call her? Our conversation was short and not emotional enough to bring her to tears. I was missing something. I didn't understand something. All night I tossed and turned, trying to figure it out. Of course, I had a simple solution to the dilemma. All I had to do was ask her. Had she already met him? Why did she want to meet him? Was she planning to have sex with him? Had she already had sex with him? I was driving myself crazy. I knew I couldn't ask her any of those questions. Everything I would learn would come from the information she would give me of her own free will, without me asking. I was very worried about this and was determined not to give in to easy entreaties. If she told me, that would be fine, but I wouldn't ask. I glanced at the clock. It was almost 5 in the morning. I got out of bed and quietly went to the bathroom to relieve myself. I was still thinking. I tried applying a few tricks to stop the thoughts, but nothing worked. Before leaving the bathroom, I cast a glance at the laundry basket. I slowly lifted the lid and peeked inside. After shifting a few things on top, I found a pair of black silk panties and a black push-up bra. These were special occasion underwear. She wore them for birthdays, anniversaries, and other occasions of celebration. Special lingerie always meant special sex. Yesterday wasn't special. We didn't have special sex. I didn't even get to see her in lingerie. There was one more thing to do. I slowly brought her underwear up to my face. There was no sign of fluids or sex on her panties. I was relieved, but remembered that didn't mean that sex hadn't happened at all. All I knew for sure was that she had worn her black silk panties that day, and I had to assume that she had put them on so that someone could admire her in them. I carefully placed the bra and panties on the dressing table by the sink. Making as little noise as possible, I got dressed and left the house. I sat sipping my third cup of coffee, my thoughts racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. I pushed the plate of unfinished eggs and grits away, paid the bill, and didn't know what to do next. Emotions raged. First, I was disappointed by my wife's infidelity. Second, and quickly rising, was the emotion of revenge. Clayton Brenner had made the mistake of calling my wife. He was a blabbermouth and a conniving asshole. The mere thought of him intruding on the sanctity of my marriage made me furious. A woman never forgets her first lover, and since Clayton was handsome and rich, that made it even more difficult. Getting revenge on my wife was another matter. I knew what Clayton had done. I wasn't sure what Cassie had done. Spirit and intent meant a lot to me. If she did something, what was her motivation, and what was she trying to accomplish? I didn't feel like I could judge her until I knew more. I didn't really want to know more, though. I drove aimlessly around the city for a few hours until it was time to go to work. Eventually, I convinced myself that I didn't want to know what Cassie had or hadn't done. Knowing either way would affect our marriage and possibly destroy it. I was determined not to give her a chance to explain her actions, no matter how hard she tried, if she tried. I was tired and depressed. I didn't feel like going to work or anywhere else. Cassie was already awake. I was sure by now she had found her bra and panties on the dressing table. I tried to visualize what was going on in her head, but I couldn't. There was too much going on in my head to think about what she was thinking about. Now she knows I guessed something was going on. I couldn't concentrate on my work at the office. Around 10 o'clock, the phone rang. "John, it's Cassie." "Yes." A short pause hung on the other end of the line. "I'm going to go to my mother's for a few days. Is that okay with you?" "How long is a few days?" "About a week. Is that okay?" "Sure. Call me when you're ready to come home." "Okay, thanks." Another short pause followed. "John, I love you." I didn't respond. Quietly hanging up the phone, I sat down in my private office and quietly cried for the first time in years. I took the rest of the week off, using my accumulated sick leave. I knew I was going to do something stupid. I just didn't know what yet. The most likely scenario I could think of was that Cassie went to see Clayton at the motel restaurant and then went to his room and had sex with him to reminisce about old times. After she got home, she felt guilty and tried to confess what she had done to me in some way. She waited until we were in bed for me to react a little better to her confession. It was already resolved, and she was trying to get some left-handed approval from me to justify or make up for her transgression. I didn't give her slack, and now she had a real problem. She knew that I realized she wasn't being entirely truthful, and she had no idea what to do next. Of course, I could be completely wrong. When I returned home, I found the black underwear in the garbage can in the garage. I spent the next 2 days making myself even more miserable. I didn't leave the house and played these mind games over and over again. I felt like Cassie and I had a special relationship, and more than anything, I wanted to keep it. Any confession on her part would destroy the trust between us. Any questioning on my part would do the same. We were trapped. I was sure that she would want to confess everything to spare herself the guilt, and that she was willing to face the consequences that would follow. I didn't want her to come clean because I felt it would ruin our marriage. Cassie had a poor judgment of the whole situation. Who was she now? A cheater or just a housewife who had blundered and regretted it? Who was Clayton? He was a skirt hunter who went after married women, believing them to be reliable because he had them before. He called at my house, my hideout, to seduce my wife. It was pretty easy to see where to direct my aggression. I decided to solve part of my problem the next day, and I didn't care what the consequences were. Figuring out which room Clayton was in wasn't difficult. I decided it was best to take the simple approach. I'd knock on his door, and when he opened it, I'd shoot the asshole. At this point, I didn't care if I got caught or not. I wasn't going to make a big show of it, and thought that if I didn't draw attention to it, I could get by without any bystanders. I opted for a Ruger .22 caliber automatic pistol. Figured 3 bullets to the heart and 1 to the head would do the trick. I'm not a fan of big guns. I can't remember the last time I used a gun or even cleaned it. I don't own many: a shotgun, a deer rifle, an S&W .38, and my Ruger. The problem today was that I couldn't find the Ruger. I tried to remember where I might have put it or if I had loaned it to anyone, but I couldn't remember. I ended up just grabbing the Smith & Wesson and heading to the Desca Inn. The next step in my plan didn't go well either. When I arrived at the motel, I found it crowded with police cars. I put my .38 caliber pistol under the seat and got out of the car. I nonchalantly approached one of the cars. They were bringing a woman out of a Clayton motel room. She had a blanket slung over her shoulder, and a female officer was hugging her. I was afraid to look. As they approached the car, I recognized the woman. It was Susan Bradford, an acquaintance of ours. She and her husband, Barry, had graduated from high school with us. They had moved to Reading so Barry could open a car dealership. I was sad to see Susan, but glad it wasn't Cassie. Susan was also one of Clayton's former conquerors. As they were putting her in the car, I heard one of the officers ask, "Did she see the shooter?" "No, she locked herself in the bathroom. We had great difficulty getting her to come out." A short time later, Clayton was carried out in a body bag. I can't say I was too upset about it, but I was looking forward to putting him in there myself. Oh well, some days nothing works out. On the way home, I bought a pizza and a 6-pack of beer. I spent the rest of the week doing yard work and repairs around the house. I didn't feel like going back to work, and now that my fun with Clayton had been thwarted, I could feel the depression coming over me. I kept a copy of the newspaper with the story of Clayton's death. The police had no evidence and no witnesses. When Cassie got home, the house was clean and a modest dinner had been prepared. It was a cool greeting, just a modest smile from each of us and a peck on the cheek. We ate dinner and chatted about how her mom and dad were doing. We both tried not to talk about anything controversial. I put the dishes away and brought her a cup of Earl Grey. She sat in silence, looking at her fingers in her lap. Slowly, she raised her head. "John, I need to explain to you that—" "Cassie, I'd rather not right now, please. Maybe another time we can talk about it. I've had a rough week, and I'm really not up to it." "But—" "Please bear with me. Enjoy your tea." An awkward silence ensued. I picked up the paper with the article on Clayton and held it out to her. She looked at me and read the paper without saying anything. She put the paper aside and looked at me again, looking for a sign of consent to speak. I gave her none. "I think I'll take a shower and go to bed early. I'm a little tired after my trip. I haven't been sleeping very well lately. I'm just going to sleep on the couch for a while. Good night." "Good night, John." I watched her walk up the stairs as I carried the teacups into the kitchen. It looked like it would be quite some time before things were back to normal. 2 weeks later, I returned to the bedroom. After about 6 weeks, we started having sex again. It was 4 months before our relationship was close to normal. They would never be the same again. But we were close to it. We no longer had late-night conversations. We never discussed the episode with Clayton. Cassie got pregnant. We were both happy. With the baby coming, we needed a new car. A station wagon, of course. I stopped by Barry Bradford's. He was in the process of divorcing Susan and wasn't shy about discussing it. Too bad she was locked in the bathroom and couldn't identify the shooter, I remarked. Barry threw me a funny look. I was trying to figure out what exactly I had said wrong. Up to this point, our conversation had been open and frank, and here it was, as if I had tripped over my own tongue. John, there was no mention in any newspaper article or on TV that she was locked in the bathroom. Oh, well, I must have seen that somewhere. I hated to tell him I'd been at the scene. I have all the clippings and all the information about what happened, and it wasn't mentioned anywhere. The police kept that information secret to help them with their investigation. They also didn't disclose that the shooter used a .22 caliber handgun. I don't remember, but I must have heard about it somewhere. Barry looked at me for a long time without saying anything. He knew Cassie had fallen victim to Clayton's charms, too. Yes, everyone knew all the girls Clayton had slept with because he bragged about every one of them. A wide grin appeared on his face. John, I'm going to give you the best deal on the best station wagon in this parking lot. Let's go pick it out. I assumed Barry had concluded where I got my information about Susan being in the bathroom. He was wrong, but I saw no point in correcting him. Eventually, Barry got his own Ford dealership, and I got a great discount on a new car every 2 years for the rest of my life. Cassie and I had 2 beautiful daughters. Our marriage continued to strengthen despite one setback. When we attended social events, Cassie always made sure to stay close to me. If some promising guy was hitting on her during the event, she would walk over to me, take my hand, and whisper in my ear, "It's time to go." I always knew what that meant. It happened a lot because Cassie was turning into a real heroine. She was aging well. Some of our regular hosts knew about this little quirk of hers and started reacting to it too. When they saw Cassie and I leaving early, they would start figuring out which of the men had made the gaffe and punish him to death. It became a regular party game in our circle. Every once in a while, I would take Cassie's hand and whisper in her ear. She thought it was hilarious, but we'd go anyway. The 20th reunion came, and we drove to Lancaster to attend. As with all reunions, there was a lot of handshaking. It went pretty well, and we had a great time. As the evening was coming to an end, a well-dressed, well-groomed lady approached the table. It was Janet Brenner, Clayton's wife. She approached us, held out her hand, and asked me to dance. I looked at Cassie, and she nodded that it was okay. It was a slow dance, and I tried very hard not to do anything inappropriate. The song ended, and we remained standing on the dance floor. She was facing me and holding both of my hands. Clayton kept a pocket planner. When the police returned his stuff to me, the book was included. I don't know why they didn't keep it or at least read it. I read the entire book several times and then destroyed it. I have been waiting for this opportunity to personally thank you for making my last 12 years absolutely wonderful. My new husband is the best thing that has ever happened to me, and without you, this would not have been possible. I knew what she meant, and I didn't have the heart to tell her she was wrong. I figured I had nothing to lose by letting her believe my fantasies. I kept my best poker face and let her do the talking. I don't know what exactly was in his book, but she seemed to be able to put a few things together and realized that I had set her free. She snuggled up to me and kissed me gently on the cheek. I looked back and saw Cassie watching intently. I walked Janet to her seat, and then a large, menacing man stood up. "John, this is my husband, Harold Stanton. Harold, I'd like you to meet John Wagner." "John, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. Janet and I are grateful for all you have done for us." I thought my hand was going to turn blue, so hard he squeezed it. "I'm glad things worked out so well for you two. I hope you have many good years together." It was really stupid, but I was at a loss. I smiled and nodded my head slightly. Walking back to my desk, I noticed Cassie sitting with her head down, fiddling with her fingers in her lap. She did that when she was nervous. When I sat down, she started talking. I put my index finger and thumb together and slowly ran them over my lips. She smiled softly and didn't say anything else. We were both tired, and it was about a 2-hour drive to Reading. We talked a little about what had happened the evening before, but didn't say anything about Janet. We got home, checked on the kids, and went to bed. I turned out the light, giving her a quick kiss on the cheek. Everything was quiet, but I knew she was awake. "John?" "Yes?" "What did Janet tell you?" "Janet told me that she and her new husband are very happy and that I should thank you for her." I lied. The dark bedroom was very quiet. Cassie lay very still and quiet. I couldn't even hear her breathing. "Cassie?" "Yes?" "What did you do to my Ruger?" "Good night, John." The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.